Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Really glad to have back former television news anchor, now candidate for a governor of the great state of Arizona. It's Kari Lake. Kari, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's always great to be on your show. I always get such great feedback whenever I appear on your show.
And
So
I get
thank you for having me.
and I get great feedback when you're on the show, so I appreciate that both ways. We've got to talk about your great state. I love Arizona. I've been there. It's a very nice place. The people are very nice. I think it's a red state. Looks more purple lately. It's a little bit confusing what's happening there. But we have two stories coming out of Arizona. One the media wants to talk about. The other one the media doesn't want to talk about. Let's start with the one that they're talking about. There is a claim from the general mainstream or left media that there was an audit done in Arizona that not only showed Joe Biden won, but he won by 200 some odd more votes than he did the first time. Kari, I could be wrong. I'm a former TV news guy too, but I think that was a recount. I don't think that was an audit. I think they just counted what they already had, right?
Right. Well, this is part of what came out in the forensic audit report and the presentation of the report. If you recount all the ballots, they say that Joe Biden won. But what really came out of the report was how many of those ballots are fraudulent. It's like having a kid who cheats at Monopoly game when the whole family comes together at Thanksgiving and
Right,
everyone sees him cheating and you go, okay, you won, but everyone knows he didn't win because he cheated.
right,
Typical media, Joe, given a half truth, which is just a big fat lie.
right.
Oh, Joe won if you count the fraudulent votes. And what we learned a lot in that presentation. And I know the media has the attention span of a gnat and they have tiny brains that can't, critically think and look
Right.
at all of this evidence. But what we learn now is we have evidence that is admissible in a court of law now with a forensic audit that shows there were so many avenues where they pushed in and pumped in fraudulent votes. And we haven't even got to the complete bottom of it. I think you might have caught this if you were paying attention, and I'm sure you were. They haven't released yet the router information and analysis, and they have not yet released the analysis of the paper and of the ballots. Remember, each and every ballot had a forensic high definition digital photo taken of it. It's so high definition it will be able to tell you if the ballots were legitimate ballots or counterfeit ballots. It can tell you if a human being filled out the ovals or if they were filled out via printer. Those results have not yet been released. But what we know right now, as it stands, Joe Biden did not win.
And
Joe
that's
Biden did not win
right.
because you can't count fraudulent
And
votes.
we're just
And
talking
that's why
about
we have to
Maricopa
be
County
certified.
here. We're just talking about one county. And what's interesting is I want to make it even simpler. As you know, I'm a simpleton, as you tell me off there all the time. If I
That's true.
if I have 10 ballots and I count them, and 7 went for Biden and 3 went for Trump, Biden wins. Now, months later, I take those 10 and I count them again, and I don't do anything different. Biden's still going to win. So there was no change whatsoever in that aspect of the so-called audit. That literally was a recount of what you've already counted. And if you didn't come to the same conclusion or close to it, you look like a bunch of idiots. Now let's do the deep dive. And I've seen numbers, and please correct me if you've seen different numbers, but I've seen numbers like almost 50,000 votes that were either illegitimate or illegal according to the Constitution. The Constitution says that only the state legislature can change the rules of the game. They never
Right.
made the provisions to allow for duplicate voting. They never made provisions for those who moved out of Maricopa County 29 days ago or more to vote. They never made provisions that dead people could vote. So we've got 50,000, Kari, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, that are in question at the very least, and Trump only lost by 10,000. That's a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We've got people voting who moved. First of all, ballots are not supposed to be uh, sent to the next address. They're supposed to go back to the county
Right.
and then, taken basically away. If you don't change your address on your voter registration, the ballot is not supposed to be transferred to your new address. They did not follow the protocol. They did not follow the law. There was so much that came out of this audit. There is so much that shows us how troubled our elections are. Remember how they called them they were perfect elections?
Right.
They weren't perfect. They were
No.
shady, they were shoddy, they were corrupt. And anybody who even paid attention to 10 minutes of that presentation would realize that. If you paid attention to the whole thing, you were probably in shock at just how bad and shoddy our elections were run. And they should have never certified that election in the first place. We had enough information going into the certification when Doug Ducey certified that. He should have never certified it. He really shouldn't have. And he and Katie Hobbs, I mean, I don't know how they're living with themselves putting us all through this by certifying that in the first place. Shouldn't have happened, needs to be decertified, and we need to really start looking at criminal charges here.
It's Kari Lake. Go to karilake.com, KARILAKE.com. Go and support her candidacy. Running for governor of the great state of Arizona, Republican. So let me ask you this. You've got a Republican legislature. What's the issue? Why aren't they screaming from the highest mountain saying, hey, you circumvented us. You did a bunch of illegal crap that we never approved. You can't do that without us. They seem to want to brush this under the rug and say nothing to see here. What's the problem? Why aren't they going nuts?
Not all of them, and we have some rhinos in there. I mean, I don't know if you've been following this all along, but at every step of the way, the Board of Supervisors, whose the majority is Republican, and all kinds of people along the way, either elected officials, appointed officials, have been throwing roadblocks in front of our brave senators who have been pushing to get this forensic audit done. There's a lot of Republicans as well as Democrats who have been acting very guilty and trying to stop this forensic audit. And unfortunately, some of those people are also state lawmakers, and they don't really have the guts, the courage, or the wherewithal to do the right thing. And we need people who are courageous enough to do the right thing, even though the fake media is pumping out a bunch of lies about them. We've got to do the right thing right now. We don't have a big majority. We have a 1-vote majority in the Senate, and that is where they would need to take the next move on this. We need to decertify, and I think we may need to get more information coming out. Maybe perhaps once the analysis of the routers comes out and the analysis of the ballots. If we find out that a lot of these ballots were indeed more than the 50,000 plus that you mentioned were indeed counterfeit or corrupted, we're going to have a problem. I just spoke to somebody, Joe, who was he was a worker at the forensic audit. And by the way, they had a disclosure agreement that everybody signed where you couldn't talk about what you saw.
Right.
That ended at 4 p.m. on Friday. So now all of these volunteers who showed up day in and day out for hours upon hours, they can start talking about what they saw. I talked to one man who was there day in, day out, put dozens and dozens of hours into this. He said he saw pallets of ballots that were mail-in ballots that they counted. They went around the kind of the merry-go-round Suzy Q, and they had to count the mail-in ballots, right? In order to have a mail-in ballot, it has to be folded up a couple times. He said these mail-in ballots had no folds whatsoever on them. He saw hundreds of them.
And that's an impossibility, the way they were sent out. I guess that's why Cyber Ninjas has said there were duplicate ballots. There were more ballots counted than we know mail-in ballots were sent. That's an impossibility mathematically. It's interesting because the left media that you broke away from, and I broke away from, to be honest, they've been saying, hey, great for Cyber Ninjas on the recount. Man, they suck at everything else. So I'm not really sure how do you do that? I mean, I don't think that you can really square it. Our source is Cyber Ninjas, but they're only really good sometimes when we like them to be. So how do you deal with getting the information? It's Kari Lake, who did information for many, many years and now wants to be the governor of the great state of Arizona. Go to karilake.com, KARILAKE.com. How do you correct the misinformation, disinformation machine who keeps on telling the people of Arizona and the people of the United States that, hey, Joe Biden was certified correctly, and fact checkers say, look at Twitter today, fact checkers say Joe Biden did win Arizona. How do you correct that? How do you tell people, hold on, we're not really sure yet?
I'm telling people that they have to become their own reporters. If you want to find out what happened with the forensic audit, then you have to watch when they presented it. You have to watch. You disseminate the information. Don't rely on some activist member of the media who's a leftist to try to break everything down and tell you what happened. The media is pushing propaganda. So we have to become our own reporters. We have to go to the source where the information is coming from, watch the entire interview, and then decide what we think. We just cannot rely on the media. And it's frankly, it's criminal what they're doing. How they could have watched that presentation and taken away what they did. They're either dumb, they either can't hear, they have an attention span of a gnat, or they don't care and they're trying to put out fake news intentionally. And I have a feeling it's the latter. I mean, just
Yeah.
think of this. You saw this fact, right? More than 1 million computer files were deleted the day before the audit was to begin.
Including
Somebody said,
.dvd files, which were the actual files that showed the result of the actual tally. Why would they delete that? That goes against Arizona law that says you've got to keep it for a certain amount of time.
and any one of these little facts that we've been bringing up right here should have been the lead story. Somebody in the Maricopa County Elections Office or wherever it was deleted more than 1 million files the day before the audit was to begin. That's illegal. Why wasn't that the headline rather than if you count up all the votes, Joe Biden still won? By the way, we're talking about the fraudulent votes as well.
Right. Because they're complicit, and you know that. It's Kari Lake,
Yeah.
KariLake.com. Go there. How are you doing in the race? What do the polls look like? And are you yet getting a fair shake from the media? At last we spoke, there was some reporter who made a fool of himself, kept asking you about Obama and all sorts of other stuff and donations, and never really got to the meat of why it was you wanted to be the governor and what changes you wanted to make. Are you getting a fair shake?
I don't know about a fair shake. I've been doing some interviews with the, local media. It's all left leaning or full on leftist, but I can hold my own because I know how they do their job and
Right.
I'm not afraid to push back. So I actually enjoy doing those interviews and I look forward to doing more of them. We're doing great. Let me just tell you, our last poll that we did showed that we were up 25 points, more than 25
Wow.
points from our closest competitor. Now, there was some new polling that came out today. This is kind of an establishment pollster. It showed us up 15 points, which is still fantastic.
Is that in the
But
primary or is that
I've
over
heard a few
everybody?
things about that poll that I'm not really sold on.
Right.
However, we'll take a win. A win is a win for me.
Is that over everybody or just in the Republican side?
The Republican side.
Okay, so who's the other side? Is it Hobbs?
It's Katie Hobbs, but
Okay.
I keep saying, hey, she might be behind bars by the time the election rolls around
It
next
could
year.
be, and you're not even kidding. I mean, seriously,
not.
somebody should face handcuffs in this. No?
Well, and this is why it's so important to elect somebody like me, a political outsider. I'm running against 35-year-plus career politicians, lobbyists, lawyers, and bureaucrats. They are all tied into the system. My closest competitor, the one who's 25 points behind me, he's 35-year, career politician,
Right.
kind of a washed-up politician. He's got advisors that sit on, according to a recent recording that was released, that are on the board of supervisors. This crooked board of supervisors has a couple of people that are really cozy with him.
Wow.
I frankly don't think that this guy I'm running against is going to do anything to bring justice to the people who fraudulently pushed this election and perhaps pushed a phony election on the people. We need somebody who's going to go in when we figure out who's guilty, is going to go after these people. And when I'm governor, no one's getting away with stealing and defrauding the voters of Arizona. I don't care how low it goes. If we talk about the people who gathered up, ballots and disseminated them to the wrong people, they're going to be punished all the way up to Secretary of State, and if it goes even higher than that. But we have to have somebody, Joe, in office who's willing to do that, who's not buddies with all of these people who were complicit in this fraud against the voters of Arizona.
Yeah, there is no accountability here, and that's the issue. And you need the governor that will bring accountability, and I believe that you'll do that. It's Kari Lake,
Yes.
KariLake.com. Go and support her candidacy, Republican running for governor of the great state of Arizona. As we find out more information, because we're not done getting the information from this audit, let's get together again. Let's do this again and keep on educating the people who are watching, okay?
Awesome. Love it. Thank you, Joe. Take care.
Kari, I appreciate you. We're back after this. Stay right here.